How are you?
Hello. I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting my request, my invitation, and I'm really glad to have you here. And I'm going to present you Lisa. She's from England. She was born in England, but she moved to USA with 3 years old. Has been working with English as a teacher for 10 years, over 10 years. She helps students to master communication skills, prepare them for interviews, and I'm forgetting something.
That's pretty good. That's pretty accurate. I'm here in Texas now. I spent most of my life in New York, but I'm here in Texas in the Texas heat. Pretty hot now.
And today we're going to talk about communication skills, right?
Correct, correct. So I
Mhm.
want to start by giving everyone the secret to becoming a more fluent speaker.
Oh, awesome.
And the secret is speak more. Speak more. And usually students will laugh because they say it can't be that simple. But speaking more builds confidence. But it's speaking about a variety of topics. So many students will say they do very well with conversation at work. They can do their job. If they speak English at work, they do okay. And the reason is because they speak about the same things at work. Same issues, same problems, same emails. So they have to learn to speak about a variety of things. So when they learn to speak about travel or food, the news, current events, it really should be anything. That's the goal, to speak about
Mhm.
anything in your
Mhm.
English life, and that will build confidence. So that's the first thing, to realize you have to speak more. So I want to also talk about the role that an English language learner has in a conversation. I illustrate it this way. It's like the game of tennis when you play tennis.
Mhm.
There's a back and forth. So you hit the ball, somebody hits the ball back. You say something, they say something. So with conversation, to make it easier, you have to realize that you also have to listen. You have to be a great listener. And when you have good conversations, if you think about the last person you spoke to and when it went really well, why did you enjoy the conversation? It's usually because the person listened to you. So we have to make sure that we are improving our listening skills, and that will actually also help with our speaking skills. Because if we're missing the question, if we're so focused on what we're saying, we will miss something in the conversation. So listening is actually very important.
So we're still listening. Yesterday I asked the what in Instagram what they think there are the struggles, the barriers to communicate better, and the answers that I have it was shyness, lack of confidence, lack of vocabulary, and it was basically this. You gave us the first tip, that is listening. It's really important. And what do you think that you should do? What areas of English we should focus to have better communication skills?
Sure. So that first one about shyness, you do have to build confidence. So you really have to not be so focused on making mistakes. Right? You are going to make mistakes and it's okay. So just speaking more will build confidence. And I know people have shy personalities. That's okay. You can still
Mhm.
be a confident person and be shy. Increasing vocabulary is very important. So we have to make sure that we're putting forth a strong effort to learn more words. However, in conversation, sometimes we're nervous and we forget words. Well, what can we do?
Mhm.
One tip is, you have to remember, in English, we have many words that mean the same thing, and that's what is frustrating about English. You have
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
means so many things. So don't think that there's a perfect word that you have to find. If it's not there, try to find something similar or close. If you still can't find something similar, then you need to describe. Just as an example, if you were talking about cleaning your apartment or your house, and I said, yesterday I cleaned the bathroom, I washed the dishes, I mopped the floor, and then I cleaned the carpet. I used a machine that you plug in and it's electric. You understood what I meant. The word I was looking for
Mm-hmm.
was vacuum cleaner. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to describe, but you never want to stop a conversation because you can't find the perfect word. It will take you
Mm-hmm.
longer if you have to describe, but at least the conversation moves forward. Never stop a conversation because I don't know the word. You can describe or find something close to it to get the meaning across.
Mm-hmm.
The other tip that I want to give for building confidence is preparing. So sometimes we don't have a chance to prepare. Um, and the type of speaking where you don't have a chance to prepare is called extemporaneous speaking. That is a real word. It's called extemporaneous speaking.
Pretty
And
hard word.
it's a pretty hard word, but it's the kind of speaking that students want to practice. So it's not prepared speaking like a presentation at work. You have time to prepare, but extemporaneous. So this means if I suddenly was going to talk to you now and I said, "Hey, let's talk about your last vacation. Hey, let's talk about the movie you saw last weekend." You weren't ready. So you have to get used to doing that. If you have someone to practice, hopefully if somebody really wants to improve, find someone to talk to and don't
Yeah.
prepare. Just start talking about the football game or the tennis game you watched or whatever and get more comfortable. So going back to preparation, sometimes we know we are going to be in a situation. So if you have a doctor's appointment, you can prepare for the doctor's appointment. Do you remember your body parts? Do you remember how to describe
Mm-hmm.
symptoms? Fever, I'm nauseous. Do you remember stomach ache? Uh, do you anticipate the questions the doctor will ask you? So I find sometimes students know that they're going to a particular, be in a particular situation. You have a chance to think about the vocabulary words. So I want to go back to the illustration I gave where the student was at work and speaks very well at work. The reason is because they use the same vocabulary at work. They have enough English to do their job. So you have to step
Mm-hmm.
outside of work and speak about other things because you get to use other vocabulary. If I was going to talk to you about travel, I don't need words for cooking. Right? I don't need words for sports. So really, you have to have a variety of things to talk about, and that will help build confidence and it will help keep you calm.
Mm-hmm. Great. So how can I build this vocabulary talking to others? If I don't know the word, I try to describe, and later I can check, look up for this word, right? So I can go building my vocabulary.
Yes, exactly. Grammar and vocabulary can easily be learned because you can do that from a book. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
books you can take out from the library for free if you don't want to buy anything. You can buy something online, but keep track of your words. So you should have a notebook if you learned a new word or you hear someone use a new word. Look it up, but you have to try to use it in your conversation. So, for example, if you just learned the word for vacuum cleaner, maybe you were saying the machine that cleans the carpet. Next time, try to use vacuum cleaner in your conversation. And that's the hard part is using the words that we've learned. Also, you should keep track of the pronunciation. You can have the right word, but if it's not pronounced correctly, then the listener won't understand what what you mean. Typically, I ask students if they have difficulty pronouncing a word or remembering a word. I'll have them say it for me at least 3 times without a mistake. So I'll check it, each class, and then I'll feel
Mhm.
confident that they know the word and can use the word, and they're comfortable with the meaning. Vocabulary is best learned through use. It's not enough just to know the meaning. You can have a notebook and write a sentence with that word. The brain will remember when you actually do activities with the word. So certainly just get, there's many English language books out there for vocabulary. Do some self exercises. If you have a teacher or a tutor, certainly they would do a lot of vocabulary work with you.
Great. And there was a answer that I thought it was interesting. I shared with you that someone said in spontaneous conversations, um, she can she cannot continue doing the conversation because she get lost in her mind. She cannot remember the words. You kinda already say this here. We try to use synonyms. We cannot stop the conversation because you don't know the words.
Yeah.
But focusing a little bit on this, what tips could you give us for not ending the conversation so early and to have better spontaneous talking?
Sure. One technique is to use reflection. So I want to go back to that example of playing tennis, and I'll explain what I mean. So
Mm-hmm.
when the game of tennis, right, conversations like tennis, so the person says something to you, they're waiting for you to say something back. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens is a question is asked, and the student will answer it. So for example, they might say, Lisa, how many children do you have? Oh, I have 8 children. And then there's silence, nothing. What you can do is reflect back. You can ask them the same question. Oh, so how many children do you have? So you can mirror or reflect back. We get so focused on our answer, we forget to hit the ball back. Say something. Do you have a big family? So that works very well. If you're asked something, you can ask them the same question or a similar question back to move it forward. The other thing is how the brain is works or how our brain how we were taught. For example, we talked a lot about vocabulary, and so students focus on the words a lot. I don't know the words, I don't have the words, you're nervous. We forget about something called the idea. So this is what should be going through your brain, the process to be a better spontaneous speaker. Focus first on your idea. That's number one. What you would like to say. What are your ideas? The second thing is you need to put them in order. What's the logical thing to say first to the person? What's the next idea I want to talk about? And what's the last idea? So put them in order. The last thing you should be thinking about is your vocabulary, your grammar, right? And don't worry so much about mistakes as long as the idea is clear. So it's not thinking of vocabulary first. Please think of what you want to say. What do you think first, second, third, and then the vocabulary. And one final point about this, I'll speak for the American culture because this is where I am. We are very
Mm-hmm.
forgiving with mistakes. It's more important for us to understand your idea. So if you have an accent, don't worry about it. If you make grammatical mistakes, don't worry about it. As long as I understand what you want to tell me. So if you say, Lisa, I go bank, right? Terrible grammar, I go bank, but I understand what you meant. And then I could say something back. I could move the conversation forward. So try not to get obsessed about words. You have to at least have in your mind first, what is the goal? What is the result? What are you trying to do in that conversation? Right? So you have to retrain the brain. It's very difficult. But ideas, order of your ideas, the vocabulary always follows the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Great, great. I like this idea that you said about asking the person the same question. If I don't know what I should say, or I want to have some idea how to answer this, I can give
Yeah.
him the question and have some idea. what you
Yeah.
say.
For sure, for sure. And we just have to remember there are more non-native English speakers in the world than native speakers. We forget that. There are more people who are non-native English speakers in the world. So don't focus on messing up or making a mistake, and then your anxiety will take over, and then you can't think anymore. So I call it the three C's. Try to be calm, try to be clear, and try to be confident. Even if you're a lower level student, you can still communicate very well because I've had students who were more advanced and they didn't communicate well. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because they were working on being calm, they weren't clear, and they had very little confidence. So even though they had the vocabulary, they just were not doing very well with conversation. And practice, practice, practice. The more you speak, I promise you'll get better. You won't get worse. You'll get better.
Yeah. So it's a brief conversation, but if I have my questions, I give you the questions from the challenges that ask it. But if you would like to add it some new information, some tips, you can feel free to share with us.
Yeah, sure. I just want every learner to focus on why they think they're not fluent. We really have to know why, and there's different reasons. So we talked about vocabulary. It could certainly be not being prepared. It can also be listening. If you find that somebody is speaking too fast all the time, that's what you have to work on. And just a brief note about accents and accent reduction.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, accents are very important because they're beautiful to hear. It brings variety. There's nothing wrong with an accent. We all have a basic human need to be understood. We all want to be understood. That's a basic need. Right? So don't worry about the accent. However, you do need to know what sounds give your particular language group trouble. So, for example, if you're a Brazilian Portuguese speaker, you should know what sounds give native Portuguese speakers trouble. So, if I
Mm-hmm.
was talking, if you were Chinese or Italian, we would have a different conversation because they struggle with different words. So, just as an example, Brazilian Portuguese often have a little trouble with the M like Mary, and the N like Nancy at the end of words. So, they sound the same. So, ram might sound like ran, or
Mm-hmm.
some might sound like sun. So those are the things you need to focus on. Also, I know in Portuguese the R and the H are reversed. So,
Mm-hmm.
right. In English, a Portuguese speaker might say right, right. They want to put this H sound with the R. So be aware of that. The individual sounds that give your native language group trouble. And when you work on that, you start to become more confident with your pronunciation, and you don't worry so much if you sound funny or are they understanding me. It's really speaking the sounds clearly. It's the goal is never to sound like a native. That's not the goal. The goal is just to speak as clearly as you possibly can. That would
It's
be the goal.
communicating. Yes, it's communicating.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
yes. So I think that you gave us great tips,
Uh-huh.
and I really appreciate this time that you gave us, the knowledge that you shared with us, and it was really nice. And I think that everyone that you watch later, and that is watching now, really love it to hear from you and to learn from you.
Well, good. It was my pleasure to be here. And if you remember one thing, just remember the secret to becoming a more fluent speaker is speak more. Don't be afraid to speak. And the more you speak, the easier it gets. I absolutely promise you that for sure.
Thank you so much, Elisa.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
I'm going to share your channel on my stories because you want to share your knowledge with other students, right?
Yes, thank you. I just started a YouTube channel. I have a lot of information I'll be uploading, but this way it's a good resource. It will focus on conversational skills.
Mm-hmm.
Have focused so much on grammar and tenses and learning words. A lot of that can be learned on your own, but I'm going to share with you what's worked for my students, what I've seen over 10 years, what builds confidence, and those are the things that I will be sharing, focusing mainly on public speaking skills, presentation skills, and communication.
Yes, and I saw she has a video talking about masks. That is today it's a new challenge to talking to communicate with masks. So I really like recommend the video, and I will share it with the people from the challenge later.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's a difficult one. Many students have mentioned to me that they struggle because the mouth is covered now with the mask. But there's some alternatives because masks aren't going away for now, and we have to continue to try hard to communicate.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was very nice meeting you, and I hope your audience enjoyed it, and I hope they were able to benefit. So everyone be safe and have an excellent day.